Welcome to Speaking in Spoons, the Chronically Ill podcast, with your host, Christina Brookman.
Hi, welcome to Speaking in Spoons. My name is Christina Brookman, and I'm your host. And I have with me Nathan and Lexi, who are my lovely co-hosts. So I'd like us to kind of go around and just introduce yourselves. So, Nate, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're doing this podcast.
I'm Nate. I have mystery sickness, or some people call multiple sclerosis, MS. And I'm here speaking in spoons. Do I need to say anything else, or just we go to the next person now?
Yeah. No, whatever you want to do, Nate. It's fine.
We need a baton.
Yeah, we need a baton. As you can tell, this is our first episode, and we're figuring this out as we go.
Then
do you have anything else to say, or would you like to pass it to Lexi?
I will pass the conch to Lexi.
Okay.
Oh, the pressure. No, I'm Lexi Crow. I have generalized hypermobility spectrum disorder. I have hemiplegic migraines. I have MTHFR gene thing, and PCOS and fibromyalgia and POTS and just the myriad of lovely fun stuff. So you'll just probably learn throughout all the random shit that I have.
Okay, Lexi, you and I are twins. Yeah. Yes. We say that all the time. Like I have Ehlers-Danlos, hypermobility, fibromyalgia, Sjogren's, trigeminal neuralgia, and hemiplegic migraines, or as I like to say, it looks like a stroke, but it's not. We all are friends and decided I'm here. I've always wanted to do something about disability, and kind of unite people with disabilities. And sometimes I have problems with online forums because it can get kind of negative. So we're trying to keep this a little bit more fun and upbeat. I mean, it's not like we're not going to talk about some depressing things sometimes, because it's life and it's living with a disability, but we're gonna keep it a little bit, try to go there with humor, because that's who we are on our good moments. I see you, Lexi.
Yes.
You're like,
I'm
not right now.
I'm trying to figure out how to keep my phone still. I'm just like wiry and just like,
I like it though. It's kind of bad.
Y'all are all standard, and I'm like,
it's adding, like, it's like you're dancing, so you're a background dancer. So so Speaking in Spoons, why did we pick the title? Some of you in the disabled community might have heard of the spoon theory, particularly if you have a chronic illness. So the spoon theory is something that was created by Christine. Let me get her name right, and I'm probably going to murder it, but it's Christine Miserandeo in an essay in 2003 called The Spoon Theory. And basically, she has lupus, and it was her way of helping communicate to a friend what it's like living with a chronic illness or disability. Because sometimes that's hard to understand. And so she did it through spoons. They were at a restaurant, and she said, look at these spoons and think of them as energy, and we're going to go through the day, and you get to tell me what activities you want to do. And every time you want to do an activity, I'm going to charge you so many spoons. So her friend's like, oh, this is easy, And she's like, I'm getting out of bed. And Christine's like, 1 spoon, and I'm completely improvising the amount of spoons. But, the next thing the girl wants to do is, go brush her teeth, 2 spoons. take a shower, 3 spoons. And, goes throughout the day. And at the end of the day, it's basically like, well, you have 2 spoons left. Do you want to make dinner for yourself and your family, or do you want to take a shower or do you want to go to bed? And her friend was just like, how do I do this? And she's like, well, that's what I fight every day, is kind of learning how to manage my energy on a daily level and adjusting it. And, and you can go into reserve spoons, but then your negative spoons the
And you're
next
taking
day.
from the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And I know I do this all the time. I'll be like, it's so much energy that I really don't have, because I'll get excited about something.
Today.
And yes. And then the next day I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have talked on the phone that long. I shouldn't have typed all that stuff for the podcast. Yeah, use life. So, what does spoons means to each of you personally, Nate?
I
I'm
mean,
passing the Kong.
well, when I first learned about spoons, it didn't really mean that much to me because I was like active. Like when I met you, I was active, but it was still
Yeah.
hard. Still, by the end of the day, I still was tired. Like it wasn't like I had infinite energy. So I understood it. I feel like I understood it. But now that I'm like a little more infirmed, I feel like I understand the spoons things a lot more than I did then. Just like choosing things. You look so cool, Lexi.
Oh, no. I wear my
You're a
sunglasses
background
at night.
dancer. You keep like coming in.
Oh,
Very
I'm
cool with the
sorry.
shade.
No,
Like
I
John-
just needed
Yeah.
light. Sorry.
It's
Don't
okay.
be.
Oh, just
I
say
have a feeling
Look-
I'm most of the time going to be wearing shades during this.
It's okay.
very cool.
Just call me Shades.
Yeah. That's your
Okay.
new name.
Shades McGee. No, yeah, spoons, definitely. I thought I understood spoons before, but it's like as it gets worse, it's like you're leveling up as a video game character on just dealing with it all. I've always felt like it was like you have to level up, and now I can't level up anymore. And
Yeah.
now I
That's
have no
really
spoons.
good. Like, I like
There's
that
no mana.
analogy. Yeah.
But no, like spoons, a lot of times it's like, do I need, like a lot of times if I clean the house, I've used up my spoons to shower, so I'm super funky.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever you crash, and then what was the point of cleaning the house if you're just gonna lay on your bed all funky?
Yeah.
Or
I
like
actually have a
can't cook dinner.
caretaker right now, and I'll feel like super guilty for laying around in bed all day when I'm in extreme pain. And she's
Yeah.
like, Christina, that's what I'm here for. And I'm like, but I'm so lazy. And she's like, no. And I'm like, but I have her yell at me every hour to get my butt up and walk around with my walker and try
Like
to do my
cleaning the house
PT.
takes like 3 days out of you.
Yeah,
Just basic
absolutely.
household stuff like doing dishes. Why does doing dishes take 3 hours?
We could have a whole episode on that. We should. We should. Acts of daily living. Oh my God. I know that would kill you. I hear about like Nate juices. So like
What do you,
because
you do
he is now
juicing?
a doctor. I should have introduced you that way. Hello, introducing Dr. Nathan Strauss. Because he is now a doctor in nutrition, right? Did I get it right?
Yeah, DCN, Doctor of Clinical Nutrition, as of like 2 weeks ago or a week ago. I passed the test.
Yeah.
They haven't sent me anything in formal writing though, so I don't know. I'm probably going to get something that says I'm a doctor now, I'm hoping.
Yay!
Very exciting.
Can you put it up right behind your, like on the couch, so we can see it every time and be like, doctor?
Oh,
Yeah, you should.
I'm blurring it so you wouldn't be able to see it.
But no,
I have to
it's okay. We'll have a party for you on one episode. Celebrate.
I'll hopefully be able to walk to graduation, but that'll be next year. So we'll see how things
You got
go.
time. Yeah.
I got time to regain my strength.
Yeah.
Then
And
I'll
as
get
we all know, like, you never know
What's gonna
what's
take you out?
gonna happen. Yeah. So if not, you can pimp your wheels like I am.
I have, I've got a wheelchair now. I'm all fitted for that chair. It's sitting in my garage.
We should put on
Nice.
our Facebook pictures of our mobile devices, mobility
Well, I just
devices.
got my rollator today, and
Yeah.
Hillary's gonna build a basket so I can put my kitten in it. Because he
Aw.
likes to ride on the rollator with me. And he'll jump, I'll say, want to go for a ride? And he'll jump on it. And then we go walking through the house and he's just looking around. And
I don't
yeah.
know. I want my cats scared of it because then I won't roll over their tails.
Well,
Like,
get them to jump on it. And then they'll roll with you. And it's like,
there's too
it's
many
like I'm
cats.
walking the dog, but
There's
I'm
too
walking the
many
cat.
cats. We got too many cats.
My fellow cat lady.
Yeah. We found
Okay.
another one today, actually. One of the ferals had a baby and it's on the back porch and it looks like a little potato.
Oh, goodness.
And yeah.
Nate, were you trying to say something?
You only had one baby? That's so weird for cats. They usually have like a lot of babies, right?
Well, one that we found so far, like they might show up like, later. Her last litter had 3. She was a kitten last year and she was like, she was one of 3 like feral cats in the neighborhood and she has single-handedly turned it into like 20.
You just take in feral cats? Is that your like job in the neighborhood?
No, I didn't take them in. I have a cat that likes the outside, so I put his food out there and they, one of them was being chased through the streets by some guys
Aw.
with football. So I kind of like and he just stuck around and it's like, God damn it. And he's the one that's populating everybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Man.
Male
But
cats. Grr.
yeah, but but we've been trying to get with the SPCA. You can't get a phone call back. The Richmond's not even taking anybody. So we're just gonna have a lot of kitties.
Mm.
At least they're getting I only feed them once a day. They're getting 1 meal. At least they're
I'm
getting
gonna hook you up with someone because she takes in dogs and she knows somebody who takes in cats and finds them foster homes if you want.
We've been trying to socialize them. They're not socialized yet.
Ew.
They're really feral.
Oh, I just got a warning about our podcast that we started. And I was like, that's a late warning.
A warning about it? Like
Yeah,
what?
very confusing. Okay,
We
we're
need to
so
reintroduce
ADD, or
ourselves?
is it ADHD? I'm
I'm
confused.
ADHD. Yeah, I forgot. Hey, we forgot to mention that one, didn't we? We forgot to mention that.
Well, okay, so moving on. We're gonna talk about, now that everybody knows what a spoon is and why we pick speaking in spoons. I also thought it was funny because of speaking in tongues, and for some reason that made me giggle. But we're going to talk about what is disability and what does disability mean to you. And I want to read to you guys some emails and messages that we got, and then we can kind of discuss everything. So I even put them in a fancy folder. I am old and don't understand technology. Here it is. Okay. Okay. Disability means to me that I see life differently than most. My life has had a total 360 turnaround, and I am sane enough to tell others all about it. Somebody else wrote, we got Facebook messages too, emails and Facebook messages. Very exciting.
Good.
Yeah.
We're excited.
I know. Disability means frustration, especially with my own disability. For folks with obvious disabilities, blind, physically disabled, mentally disabled, people are more than happy to make accommodations for them. For folks like me or others with hidden disabilities, it's on us to make others aware of our disabilities and to deal with our frustrations. Speaking for myself, I can't count the number of eye rolls, huffs, or disgust and outright dismissals I receive when I have to ask others to speak louder or slower or clearer so that I can understand what they're saying. And
I mean, that's on point. I mean, it's a
yeah,
lot of frustration. I battle that daily.
yeah. And the having to like we're constantly having to advocate for ourselves and educate, especially with an invisible disability. And we were all talking about mobility devices, but we're not always using them. Like some days you can walk, some days you can't, some days.
God help you if
And
you get one of those Walmart carts and you stand up. God help you.
Yeah. Or like I have handicap placard, and when I was driving, sometimes I was using a mobility device, sometimes I wasn't. But if I got out of the car and was walking, people would just be so angry because they assumed I wasn't disabled, and they don't know my situation. They don't realize I pass out, or like, I don't regulate my body temperature, so I need to be close to the building, especially in the summer. They think I just stole like my grandparents' card or something. Here's a good one. I feel like I've been teetering between disabled and not disabled right now. Oh wait, I think, yeah. Based on a couple appointments I've got over the next couple months and years, I suspect I'll settle somewhere in the neurodivergent and chronically ill disability categories. It's interesting to be sitting on the fence for now. For me, disability means there's something about the world there's something about me that the world wasn't built around. Like most people use some sort of vision correction, but much of our world is built to accommodate vision needs, at least for mild or moderate needs, that I wouldn't consider needs for glasses a disability per se. But my neurodivergence, that's something the world wasn't built to accommodate. My occasional mobility limitations are automatically supported wherever I go. And then Lexi, you wrote, disability means to me having a med bag, getting gaslighted, and leveling up on how much pain you can deal with and function as a person like a video game character. I love how you keep bringing it back to the video game analogy. No, it's great.
You gotta nerd out, man.
Totally.
There's nothing else to do but nerd out. How else do you occupy your time other than, insurance calls and doctor visits?
Yeah. I feel like it's like a career of doctor calls and doctor visits, right? It's someone wrote, it's really hard to be a disability advocate and not understand how to advocate for myself because the condition each day can be so different. And I think, I think you guys feel this too, but like with all of our conditions every day, and we were talking about that with the spoon theory, I think everybody expects disability to be the same every day, but it's not all that for a lot of people. We've got messages from TBI, oh, this is an interesting one. I live with someone with disabilities. I am his main caregiver. He is legally blind because of macular degeneration. He also has bars in his back which limit mobility, such as bending over. Much of his self-image is damaged when he is so dependent on someone else to do something so much for him. My definition of disability would be learning to live in a body that you no longer recognize and one that you find hard to make peace with. I love that. I think that's such a great description of
What blows
disability.
me away is that this is a loved one saying that they pay so much attention to their person
Yeah.
that they see that. And it's so hard because a lot of people don't look at it that way. Like a lot of people that aren't disabled, the loved ones, a lot of them, it's a hard, personally for me, you know, you feel like you got to convince them every single day, and that
Yeah.
person sees them so well. I just want to say kudos to whoever wrote that, because they see them so well.
They do. She has such a wonderful insight to what his experience is. And I think she worded it in a way sometimes better, like better than we with disabilities can word it. Like that struggle with self-definition and sense of failure almost, and sense of embarrassment,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and the frustration, and yeah.
Is anyone else kind of nervous about how like all this is gonna, like, you know, having everything about your like stuff just aired out
No, I
and
mean,
being judged?
I used to hide myself.
Yeah.
This very deeply, I would hide who I wasn't. But now I can't really hide it. I've stopped trying to. I don't hold back what's wrong with me. I'm kind of annoyed with it, but it's my choice to share, and I feel no shame
You
in my.
shouldn't
And you
feel shame. I'm
shouldn't.
sorry, I
Yeah.
wasn't. I was just like, you know, in case like anybody fearful of like backlash or like, yo, you guys aren't really sick. Like, I'm just wired on coffee. That's why I'm faking it till I make it.
Backlash when I posted your video on my Instagram. Some asshole commented that it was like poorly taped or some bullshit. Like I was like, who are you? Like
I mean, you
it's
know,
just
we're just
it's
trying to get the word out there. Like, you know, when if y'all like this, then we'll upgrade our stuff. But right now, we're bare bones. Some of us don't even have SSDI. Some of us
Yeah.
don't have an income. So why don't you, if you want better quality, donate. Don't bitch on our
Yes.
Instagram.
And even if you are on, like, I'm on SSDI and I have friends and family on SSI, it's not a lot. Like it's like I'm on food stamps. I'm on, like, it's,
A good microphone's what we get every month.
yeah,
yeah.
I'm saying people are gonna hate. Haters hate. That's what they do. They're great
Yeah.
at it. People hate, like some people love us, some people hate us, and I think as we delve into this realm of like very minimal celebrity, we're going to notice that
Very, very minimal.
people
Basically
hate
only
us
to
for
our
no
friends.
reason. For no reason.
You're right. We got good crews that'll back us up.
Yes. And honestly, is the point to be liked or be celebrity? No. I mean,
No.
we want to get the word out. We want to share people's stories. I'm excited about this because it makes me feel like I'm being productive and having a
Right.
purpose, and I struggle like with what that lady was talking about, that guy's self-identity, and I feel useless many times.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I love what you said, Lexi, about feeling like you have to defend being disabled. Because I think particularly when we're in the process, like you are, of applying for services and things, um and discovering, like, there was somebody that wrote how they're still in the process of getting diagnosis. A lot of our disorders, it takes years to get some of these diagnoses, and some people with EDS and stuff, and multiple sclerosis, other things, they'll have it for years before they're finally correctly diagnosed.
Yeah.
And they're
And how
gaslit by
many
family members, by
misdiagnoses?
friends, by doctors,
Well, it's
so
not an exact science diagnosing you with these conditions. They're more
yeah.
labeled or anything else. It's not like you're struggling to narrow down what you have, but it's because it's not so simple. And
No.
their labels are
Biochemically, it's just crazy. Like,
right.
and the science isn't there yet. I mean, like,
No.
you know, sorry.
I'd like to call myself X-Men, because
Yeah.
they're genetic mutants. So I think, to me, and they have superpowers. So I'm an X-Men.
That's what we call with the MTHFR. We call it the motherfucker gene because it just screws up everything.
We have just gone from clean content to not
No, I
family
had already
friendly.
dropped some bombs. I'm sure I have.
I know you have. It's okay. I'm sure I will
Hey,
too.
motherfucker. All right, fine.
Hello, family. We are not family friendly, but that's okay
I'm
because
not
we're
family
keeping it
friendly. They
real.
are. If
We
you
can
don't
always-
like me,
we
I'll
could
put
always
the button on.
could bleep the cursing.
Beep. Well,
And-
it's also she's got like she's blind, you know. You're incognito.
She wasn't.
Except for your name label.
Yeah, just giving her name. No.
And now the snort and honk is there. Great.
Yeah. Oh,
Any
no.
other thoughts
Uh,
about like what people have said, or the
I
thought of
mean-
what is disability?
well,
That's where your wallet is. Over there.
I think it depends on the way you want to see it, what it is. I think if you want to see it as a curse, it'll be a curse. If you want to see it as a blessing, it'll be a blessing. And just really where you are on the journey changes how you see what it is. Like,
I mean,
Yeah.
you might just be the worst superhero with, like I always thought my migraines, I thought I was the worst superhero. I can hear something from 2 blocks away and, I can see everything in the dark. I'm Daredevil. I'm just not
Yeah.
going to go out and fight crime.
Daredevil
You're
could not.
Daredevil. Just don't, huh?
You're more like Riddick from Pitch Black.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Daredevil was blind. Like he had super sensors. I don't know.
I don't know.
We get
Whenever
like
I
that
have,
though. I mean, not blind, but like that super. Like I'm like a
That-
wolf. I can like smell everything. I smell, and like my dad was cooking eggs once, and it was burning, just a little. Like he couldn't even smell it, and I was like, I said, "Is something?" I didn't even get out burning, and I just dropped to the floor
Oh.
because of the paralysis, the
Yeah.
hemiplegia. So,
like,
yeah, and that speaking of, that was misdiagnosed for 10 years as pseudo seizures.
Oh.
Like it's all in your head. Like how many times have you guys heard it's all in your head when it's actually a physical manifestation? And I'm sure a lot of
got
people with
rid of the
invisible
doctor
disabilities will hear that.
I never got that because I'm a man.
Oh, you lucky penis haver.
No one told me I was making shit up. I walked in there like, well, sir, you have something. Let's give you some.
Let's give you drugs.
But you're so stoic. So if you're like, and also, you're a doctor, so you know how to speak to them. We need you to like do an episode of how to be a good patient.
You should have met him 6 years. He is a horrible patient.
I'm a doctor.
Really?
Horrible.
I am a horrible patient. I don't know why we're trying to I can't give any advice on anything, guys. So if you're going to go for me to advice, no. I make horrible life decisions, but we're gonna laugh at it.
Oh, totally.
Horrible life decisions are my forte. I've made a lot of terrible decisions.
We could have a whole episode on that one.
You make mistakes, and if you don't give up after them, then they're just tries. They're not.
Yeah.
My first mistake was like whenever I first started getting hemiplegic migraines, like I was so determined to finish school. Like I'd have one at school and I'd be like, well, I got to drive home. It's 45 minutes. Let's go. And then, Christina's like already like, I'm going to beat you.
I
and
am
that was
gonna
whenever I
beat
learned
you.
I need to stop driving during it.
Yeah, stop driving. Even if you don't care,
anymore.
and this goes for everybody with those issues, Nate, and cousins and stuff that have like everybody that I know that have like seizures and stuff. Even if you don't give a crap about yourself,
Give a
think
crap
about the
other
people you can kill on the road.
And if you're a narcissist, can you live with the fact that you killed somebody else by doing this irresponsible act? I couldn't.
But
I would be in a falling mess.
that is also like we can totally get into transportation because and that viewers, that will definitely be a topic because transportation for people with disabilities is a huge issue. Like when you're unable to drive, and you poor, so and there are people in rural areas too, so
without
Oh,
any
I'm so
access.
excited. So much to talk about.
I know. Like, did you know about like all of like that big population? Tennessee is so underserved medically. Like, they basically get like, you know, Peace Corps going out there to try to like give the rural areas like healthcare because it's so
Wow,
bad. Um,
that's crazy.
yeah, I mean, like there's areas of America where it's basically a third world country with healthcare, and we don't
Yeah.
address that enough.
Although I will say the problem
Sorry,
with
sorry,
being in a
Nate.
city
I
with
didn't
like,
mean to get all
no,
political.
no, no. The problem with being in a city with quote unquote good health care is that you can also get doctors that think they know everything and are unwilling
To learn.
to be human and listen to the patient and really listen to what's happening with them, get a good history, talk to the people around them, and learn and say, you know what, maybe I don't know what this is, and I'm gonna research, I'm gonna refer you to somebody who might know, I'm gonna help you on your journey, but not like, just send you to psych.
Nate,
Yeah,
you look like you want to say something.
he does. Passing the conch.
Okay. I personally have never found a good doctor for me. Like I have a lot of doctors right now, but I respect their opinion, but do I take it? Like if they say tell me to do something, will I do it without doing my own research? No, but that's more of my approach to where I've come.
Same.
Because when I first got diagnosed, I immediately went to NIH. Like I followed their orders exactly, and all it did was make me worse. And then I tried
Oh,
alternative medicine, and that was a big shitstorm. And just
20s was nothing but that.
right,
Dude, my mind's made up. Episode 2 is going to be about like dealing with doctors and personal journeys and research because Nate, I want you to talk about that. Lexi, I want you to talk about your stuff. We'll ask people about their stories. And I'm about to have neck surgery next month because
Yay!
I got
yeah.
a neck fusion from Dr. Durrani, who is wanted by the FBI for medical fraud and malpractice and has fled to Pakistan. They call him the Butcher of Pakistan. So we could have like so many conversations about all this stuff. So we're looking forward to seeing you um, on our next episode. So follow us on Facebook at Speaking in Spoons and on Twitter at Speaking in, just the in, Spoons. And then on Instagram is Speaking in Spoons. Yay! Hi, everyone. Welcome to Speaking in Spoons. And with us, we have Tim Carter, and he is a disability advocate and lawyer. And I'm going to pass the baton to him and let him do a little introduction for himself and why he is here.
Thank you. My name is Tim Carter. Part of the reason I'm here is that I'm Christina's cousin and known her all her life and been enamored with what a cute, bubbly, wonderful person she is. So that's part of the reason I'm here. And then the other part is that you posted this question on social media about what is a disability, and I just what do you think of as a disability? I just had so much kind of to say about that I wanted to talk to you about it, and then you suggested interviewing. I am, or I was, a disability advocate attorney for 20 years, right at about 2 decades. I'm currently running a low-income taxpayer clinic, so I'm not doing that now, but I was for 20 years. I also have an invisible disability myself, the attention deficit disorder. And I have, of my 3 kids, 2 of them have combination of autism and and anxiety. And so that's sort of where I'm coming from and where I've gathered all these thoughts. The specific type of disability attorney I was work doing Social Security and SSI representation of generally claimants trying to get benefits or keep benefits, and then some who had just had problems with the Social Security Administration.
And all of us have, like, I'm on disability now, and it took a whole process, which you know about. And I recently tried to go back to school to try to start the process of going back to work. And I'm now back, I'm on medical leave, and Lexi is in her process as well. And Nate has been going through his. So, and I know a lot of people out there, it can take years to go through the process.
Yeah, and they count on just sort of attribution, like just people. Attribution's not the right word, but they count on people dropping out along the way and just sort of giving up, and which they view it as a success. They say they think that they if people don't keep going, keep appealing, they view it as, well, we must have been right. And no, people just get tired of it. They can't handle the stress. They it's just it's something that the process itself is a barrier for a lot of the people who need it.
Yes.
So it's a headache.
So what would you say are, like, what is disability? And do you think there is federal disability, which is what you did, but then that doesn't necessarily mean someone's not disabled, right?
Well, right. And what I was going to say is, like, so there's a lot of different ways to look at what a disability is, and each of those different ways, there's like a lot of little things underneath of it. So I would say there's 4 general ways I think of that I've seen people approach the idea of what a disability is. And only one of those is wrong. So one way that people think of it as a disability, and that for the past 20 or 30 years has been pushed by a lot of disability advocates, activists, is as a social construct, as a way of as how you interact with the world, and if the way society sets up the world doesn't work for you, so you have been excluded because of the way society has been set up in the world. And obviously for a lot of people, and that's one of the ways, and that's one of them that I think is an accurate way to look at it. And and for some people, the idea of it being a disability being a social construction is not even a metaphorical term. I mean, literally, it's built into buildings and cities and places. So it's a literal social construction that causes a disability. You can't, you might be able to generally get around, but if there are stairs you can't get up, society has constructed a disability for you. Something's constructed a way for you to be disabled. And so there, it's, you are who you are, and you should, in the sort of view of that, is you can feel how you want to, you can feel good about it, but you're disabled because of society. And that is valid. Another way, though, is to look at it as from a personal standpoint, and thinking, okay, what are problems, certain issues that I have with my own body or mind that are preventing me from living the life I want to live, from doing the things I want to do. And one of the reasons I separate those two is, I mean, first of all, you could sort of feel like, or sort of be personally disabled if you were stranded on an island. You know, you're blind, or your arm is broken, or your mind, it doesn't let you organize everything enough to really survive. So you don't have to be in society to experience a disability. Also, there has been some sort of pushback against that sort of social way, because the sort of activists who sort of pushed who for 20 or 30 years have been pushing the kind of the social construction, which again, I view as perfectly valid. They were pushing against what had generally been seen as a kind of medicalization or essentialization of what a disability is. And so they were pushing back against that, and they had very good reason for doing so. But
like ableism kind of thing.
Yes, and that's what they were pushing against. The problem is, and part of it has to do with the fact that the disability activist community, unlike the communities representing other marginalized people, they actually are not always in, they don't always are as well connected to other people in their community as activists from other marginalized communities, because a lot of disabled
it's such an
people,
isolating disorder.
Yes, it's an isolating disorder, and not everybody who's disabled, you know, you didn't come from a long line of disabled people usually. You don't, and so it's not half the population. It's you, and so you're not always connected into these other groups, and this social construction view doesn't always mesh with how a lot of people experience their own disabilities. So the idea that, you know, some activists will can get kind of upset when people talk about wanting to overcome their disabilities or come up with cures. And again, they have good reasons for that. And it may be that, and I can see them sort of thinking that some people may have like internalized a kind of bad view of themselves, a prejudice. But it's also true that people are experiencing conditions that are troublesome to them. And so how you experience it can be different from the way society has put it on you. I mean, I think
that's great, because Nate and I used to have this fight, not fight, deep conversation, because about like looking for the cure, looking for, you know, and it's and I was like, well, Nate, at some point we have to find a form of acceptance. And I love what you're saying, because it's all about that. It's that personal journey, and everything is so individual that it's hard to kind of create a definition for everybody.
Yeah, and something that I've said, and I believe my kids who are now sort of grown up would probably agree with this, but so two of them have autism and anxiety. And if I had a button I could push and cure their anxiety, I would do that. The anxiety is very debilitating for them on a personal level.
Yeah.
But if I also had a button to push to cure their autism, I wouldn't. I would dismantle that, throw it away. The autism is a disability for them, and from a societal point of view, because society is not constructed to handle that. But unlike the anxiety, the autism really is part of who they are and how they experience themselves, and it would change them in ways that wouldn't make them who they are, and that
they wouldn't be them.
So and that's something that people have to, each sort of disabled person needs to think about on their own. And so, and I don't think that you can, even the sort of activists can necessarily push that on a particular disabled person. Because again, I think there are some people who kind of feel anxiety is a defining concept for them or part of who they are.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that that's invalid. It's something that I feel is bad for my kids, and I think they feel it is bad for them. But for some people, it might be part of who they are, and they don't want to get rid of it, and that's valid.
And we can't take away that choice. Yeah.
Right.
Like that.
What were you gonna say, Nate?
That Einstein quote. Can you hear me? Like, is my microphone okay?
Yeah.
Okay, it's like that quote. I think it was Einstein that said that if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll think it's stupid for its whole life. Like, it's just we're putting these people on the same sort of spectrum of a normative person, expecting them to produce the same results, but just because they don't doesn't mean that it's bad.
Right.
Yeah.
The grading system we have is not flexible.
And now every job has those like little Scantron sheets that you have to, like those job applications have these, do you fit into this perfect hole? If not, we can't hire you.
Yeah. That's what there's also been this push. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Tim, about with the ableism and the push to really kind of detach the medical construct of disability. And for me, and actually getting the official diagnosis was each time I've gotten one, and I have a bucket full. I know you get that, Lexi. Like it's kind of affirming, like, and also it gives me a sense of calm, because I'm like, now I know what it is. Like for years, I haven't understood what's going on. Now I can read about it. Now I can research it. Now I can kind of plan for the bad times, plan for the good times. Before I couldn't do anything. And so, and now I can take ownership of it. Now it's my disease or disability. And I'm proud of it. I'm not ashamed. And I think that's okay. I don't know.
Well, that gets into like, okay, I started off saying that one way of looking at it of the four, there is one that's wrong. And so I'll try to take apart here what I think here, some of this that goes into what talk about as a response to what you were saying. The one way to think about disability that I consider to be wrong is viewing it as a medical definition, because disability, you know, if you're thinking of it in terms of disabled versus being abled, and this is it has to do with what you can do or what you want to accomplish or what other people see you as.
Right.
That's not a medical condition. So a medical condition is something separate, and it's laid into there, but it's sort of like the sex to gender or the the skin pigmentation, eye and hair and facial features versus race. You know,
well, not everybody with the same disorder has the same manifestation, you know, the same symptoms, experiences. So some could have the same disorder and be disabled, and some don't.
Right. So some people, so knowing what you have medically is incredibly helpful.
Right.
Whether or not that's a disability is completely different, dependent upon how it affects you, how it relates to any other conditions you might have, how it relates to your job, how other people see it. That is what becomes a disability. I know
in my experience, they were always telling me you don't have enough to be disabled or get SSDI. And by that time I had the EDS, I had the hemiplegic migraines, I had PCOS, I had MTHFR, and they're just like, you don't have enough. And I'm like, my medical records are like
books. How is that not enough? And so like they want you to be so like you have to be on death's door in order to get it quickly. And like you said, they just want you to drop off. And
Yeah.
you can't think of it that way. You can't, it needs to change.
Well, okay, so okay, I mentioned four. So the fourth way of thinking about it is as a legal concept.
Yeah.
And and that's separate from the social construct, the medical idea, and the personal idea. A legal construct is okay for disability, and from a legal concept, it's not just sort of a thing. Disability is defined by however the law happens to be written for this particular purpose. So you have to meet very specific written the law and the way the law is written, and only for this particular purpose. So disability for purposes of Social Security and SSI, that's one set of standards. SSI for children, because that set of standards for SSI, Social Security, and SSI, which is generally basically the same, mostly, it has to do with your ability to work. But then they have SSI for children. Children aren't expected to work. So there's a different set of standards for that. Are you disabled?
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Are you disabled for purposes of discrimination laws? That's a completely separate standard. So and completely different. And then even like, oh, I was gonna, so what was it, the veterans disability? Veterans have a certain thing for disability that's actually defined differently from Social Security, SSI, and from how you and from whether or not you're covered under discrimination laws.
So you could be not deemed like federally disabled, but still be eligible for disability discrimination laws.
Well, yeah, you could have protection under the anti-discrimination laws, even if you don't meet the standards for receiving Social Security or SSI. In fact, technically, you don't even have to be disabled. You either have to have the disability as they define it, which for that purposes, I didn't practice that as much, so I don't have that as well memorized, but it has to do with having a condition that harms certain major elements of life, like communication or being able to work, in intellectual, I forget all of them, but they list like several areas of life. And if you have something that falls within that, that disrupts that, then that's disability for the discrimination purposes, or if you're perceived as such. So if people, that prevents, so if people think that you're disabled or treating you that way and are discriminating against you because of that, then you have a case whether or not you actually are disabled.
How have you seen like this question of what is disability affect your clients? Like,
well, yeah, because it affects my clients because they either a lot of clients will think I'm disabled, or they know that they're disabled because they've gotten disability for other purposes, and they have medical issues, and they think I'm disabled, but it doesn't necessarily meet the law, so you're not necessarily disabled for that purpose. And so just the medical list itself doesn't translate to being disabled. People seeing you as disabled doesn't necessarily translate it. I remember having one case, I interviewed this one person who had this condition that caused like bulbous things like all over his face and hands. There's these little bubbles that popped up, and it's just covered him completely.
Wow.
And he couldn't find any work. And he had trouble, other problems, but specifically for this, he couldn't find work because nobody wanted to hire somebody with that sort of disability. The thing is, he wasn't disabled.
Right,
None of
he
this
could
stuff,
work. It was just,
none of this actually affected his ability to do work. And unfortunately, that's the question, is not, will people hire you? It's, can you do the work? He could do the work. He had no case, even though like nobody would hire him because people saw him as disabled. And
That's
being seen as
interesting,
disabled, being seen as disabled, while that protects you, while he may have, that may help him if he had a specific disability case against somebody.
right.
Just being seen as disabled doesn't help you for Social Security SSI purposes. And then another way it affects thinking of it as a medical affects clients, is that one of the group of people who often think of disability as just and as a medical concept is doctors. And a lot of doctors will, will think, just because I said they're disabled, they should get disability.
Right.
And they think that I'm the expert on that, and they are an expert. And in fact, a letter from your doctor, a statement from your doctor, is the single most important piece of evidence that you'll have in a Social Security SSI case. But that's a piece of evidence. It's not the whole thing. So a doctor who just writes, this person is disabled, and doesn't tell us why, or what the conditions are, how the conditions affect them, that's useless, because it is not a medical concept. It is a legal concept.
And it's really like looking at like the acts of daily living and the ability to work and produce income for yourself, to provide for yourself.
Yes.
Is what you're saying. Gotcha. Do you guys have any questions or thoughts, Nate and Lexi?
Nate, you want to go first?
Thank you.
Yeah, we're both feeling it today.
Are you guys? Man,
The thing is, if a storm comes, it knocks both of us out. So
Yeah.
we should have picked somebody across this country.
Sorry about that. I guess there's storming here, but I guess it's not as bad. I'm less affected by it. But it's just, I've dealt a lot with trying to get disability, and I, for a long time, was not completely physically disabled. But now that I am, it's still difficult, because there's like the whole process, like you said, it's like this law of attrition. Like, you eventually give up because you've tried so many times. It's not because you don't actually need it. It's because you just are tired, because you're sick. You're sick and you're trying to do something, and it's like a double-edged sword. Like,
and because they have a vocational expert who can find one or two jobs that exist, not openings, but just positions of about 1,000 positions each throughout this entire country, in these 2 or 3 jobs that you could do. And again, there don't have to be openings. The positions have to exist. And because of that, you could work, so you're not disabled.
Okay. And I know it's particularly hard for if you're younger and have worked in the past, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've been denied a lot for my age for getting help.
Yeah, because they take your education background, your work background, all of that into account, which again is the legal system bringing in the social construction, and that doing that well before, like, socially people were thinking of it as a social construction. The law was already doing that, bringing it in.
We also we're going to have a whole episode on invisible disabilities, because all of us have invisible disabilities, except for the days when we're using our mobility devices, which I know in your intro you were explaining about your own experiences with that. And I know a big like common thing I've heard people say and that we've talked about is the discrimination we feel in society against invisible disabilities with the whole "you don't look disabled." And yeah, and I just love to know your thoughts and any personal experiences or experiences with clients with that.
Well, I mean, I feel kind of bad sometimes because like I've had trouble. I don't always necessarily keep up with the clients. I keep up with the cases, but I don't always keep up with the clients as much as I should. And a lot of that has to do with my attention deficit disorder. And when I do, and then sometimes with that, I wasn't keeping up with the cases, although it wasn't necessarily when I had a deadline, but when the other side had deadlines, I tended to let that go and not follow up because it's just not in my head. It's something I had to do. And that was a way my disability affected me. And I had these disabled clients who were relying on me. So one, I felt guilty, but then the other thing is it would feel bad like telling these, like I couldn't sort of explain this to my clients because it would be they almost an analogy of an almost exact analogy of the blind leading the blind, and they think you're a disabled person, you can't be handling this for me
Right.
when I'm disabled. And so yeah, and the invisibility versus the visible ones, and well, Christina, I know you and maybe the other two of you know as well, but there you get different types of discrimination with the visible versus invisible. With the with the invisible, you have the thing that people don't expect you to be disabled and expect you to be able to do things you can't do. But on the other hand, you don't get necessarily the stigma that you're from having the invisible disability that you get when you have to go out in with a walker or something.
Although we're the rare breed that we get both.
Right, that's what I mean. You get to compare and contrast.
It didn't start out as both for me. It was invisible back in 2009, like a decade ago. But even then I was told by family to hide it. Like, it was like a mark of shame. Like, don't let other people know because you'll never get a job if you tell them you have MS because they'll never hire you. And I was like, why? Like, I had no control of having it. It was like, it was just like it's like being Jewish in Germany in like World War. Like, it's just like, don't tell people that you have the MS because you'll be scarlet lettered and shamed.
And you are like, there are. I don't think we should hide ourselves, but there is stigma with stuff, particularly mental health too, which is, an invisible disability. We have huge stigma in this country, and that's why people aren't getting adequate care.
Well,
I mean, that's not the only reason.
Care's not available.
That true. Yes. We don't have enough. We learned during COVID too, that more people are seeking help, particularly children. And there's not enough, there aren't enough counselors, and the funding isn't there as well, which is why I love the movie Joker. Not just because I'm a superhero geek, but also I just loved how they looked at, with him using public services, and then they're taken away and he doesn't get counseling and he doesn't get medication, and that's when he starts having all his hallucinations and everything. And I just thought that was a really wonderful portrayal and perspective. So any final thoughts before Zoom shuts us off?
Probably buy Zoom.
Well, okay, two other things that I tend to think, and hopefully I'll have time here, but one thing is I like to mention, like tell interns to to know that every disability is different, which is gets into like also about the activists and not necessarily connecting with the people who a lot of the other people who have it and aren't activists. But you can't, it's good to have like 3 people hosting this and you're going and asking others, because nobody can speak for the disabled community because every disability is different. It's not just that every disabled person is different. Yes, you're all different. We're all different people, but every disability itself affects the disabled person differently.
Yes.
On television, when you see a wheelchair user, television, movies, you always get a case where the person their legs are either gone or useless from the waist down, and just they don't move around, but they're just there, but they're or not there, but they're useless. And then they're completely healthy from the waist up, and if you saw them at a desk, you wouldn't know they're disabled. I've met dozens of and worked with dozens of people who use wheelchairs, and I've never met that person. It always affects them. The condition that causes them to use a wheelchair always affects them in some other ways. There's something else going on. And a lot of people who use wheelchairs often or usually can sometimes stand up, maybe take 1 or 2 steps. And so it's just, you have to, it's all different. You have to look, no one else can know how your disability affects you really. And then let me see. So another point about that that I wanted to get to, that you were talking about having both and being the rare person with both. That's unfortunately, you're not that rare. Again, like movies, television, when they portray a disabled person, that's a person with one condition usually, which is not bad from an educational standpoint. The show is teaching people about this particular condition and how it can affect people, but just for disabled people in general, I've done that like literally like 1,200 hearings, and I don't know, 10% of them may have had one condition, one disability. Most people have comorbidities. Most disabled people have multiple conditions. And again, you don't know how, nobody else can say how that affects you, because your constellation of conditions is going to be different from anyone else's constellation, even when those who have some of the same major ones that you do.
Awesome. No, I love how you worded that. We're learning so much just talking. Like Lexi and I have most of the same disorders, and the way we experience them very different. Yeah, and so I think that's another reason why I wanted to do this podcast, was just kind of learning other people's stories, getting people's stories out there. And like you talked about how isolated the community is from each other in some ways.
But I think social media has been helping that.
Yeah,
yes, it's been helping it a lot. And that I talked about sort of what was happening 30, 20 years ago, but it has improved a lot because of social media.
But we
that's
still kind of
one good thing about social media.
Yeah,
a lot of bad stuff, but that's one good.
It's good at connecting.
Yes.
So. Well, thank you for joining us, Timmy, and
thank you for having me. This is very fun. Nice to meet you, Nathan and Lexi. Thank you so much.
You get to come back.
Yeah. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.
If you want to contact us, please send a DM or an email to speakingatspoons@gmail.com with any stories you have, or if you'd like to interview with us on any of our upcoming topics. Thank you for listening to Speaking in Spoons, and have a great day.